Andrew Petter, thank you for joining me in this special series, Leadership in a Crisis. You have a very significant organization that you head up. Can you give me a current state of the affairs right at the moment at the university? What is it that you've done? And then I'd like to talk to you about what was the process that you went through with regards to making decisions on when to act, how to act, and then what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to monitor situations and try and make the best possible decisions so that there is life after this crisis.
Well, let me start with the first thing, where things stand today. And, anyone who thought that universities are institutions that can't change are steeped in tradition. I guess we are steeped in tradition, but boy, can we change from where we are today to where we were just 2 weeks ago. So the answer is we are delivering all of our courses, but of course we're delivering them in a completely different way than we were 2 weeks ago. Our faculty are teaching from home using a variety of remote means. Our students are learning away from their classrooms to make sure that we are protecting social distancing. But we are maintaining all our programs. I'm so proud of what our instructors have done and the way our students have adapted. It's a bit more dislocating in terms of the research enterprise because obviously some research is lab-based, in person, and we have to make sure that people are safe. So some of the research has had to migrate off campus. Others has had to change, and people in some cases are not as able to pursue their research as they were. But generally, our philosophy is to show that we can continue to function, that we can continue to provide education, conduct research. And also, of course, we've very much taken pride in our mission as an engaged university. We see ourselves as playing a very important role in engaging the community, particularly at a time where people are physically isolated. We think we can help to provide the means for people to become more connected in non-physical ways. So all of that, we're working hard to try to show that the university is perhaps even more relevant than ever.
How quickly did you as a team have to start to respond and then come up with an action plan? And my follow-up question to that is, what did that action plan look like?
Well, it's a rolling action plan. We started back in January when this health issue first came onto the horizon. Appointed our vice president academic to oversee our plans. And then as the situation became more serious and it was clear it was going to become a serious issue here in Canada and for us as an operation, we do have an emergency operations center. We mobilized that center. It includes a policy group, which I chair, which is consulted now on a daily basis to make policy decisions that are necessary to enable us to continue. It has advisors who have key strategic insight into various parts of the university. So we have a group of core advisors. And then there's a whole operational apparatus that has been set up under the oversight of the vice president academic. We've also brought in a former vice president who's very skilled and knowledgeable to work alongside the vice president academic, because frankly, this is affecting everything we do. And we really need to build our capacity to make sure that we have in place the people at the center who can help to provide guidance and make sure that the decisions are not only being made, but are being carried out in the most effective way. So that more recent work around setting up the policy process and the advisors group and mobilizing that took place, I'm guessing, maybe 4 weeks ago, but it has leapt into action.
So having that plan, developing it well in advance and anticipating the need for it has played a big role in your ability to mobilize quickly.
Absolutely. And I'd also say I really want to give a shout out to governments, both federal and provincial, but obviously as a university, public university set up under provincial legislation, we want to make sure that we are operating in a way that is in concert with other institutions, not necessarily identical, but we know what we're doing. So we've reached out through our university networks to make sure that we're communicating, but also to work very closely with our ministry and with the health officials, because we want to make sure we're supporting the decisions that are being made by the provincial health officer, we don't want to get out ahead of what the provincial health officer is advising, but we want to make sure we are at the very front of the line in terms of taking the action that is required. So we've moved expeditiously, but consistently with that advice.
So because you have so many stakeholders, you need to have clear and consistent communication all the time. How is it that you're able to coordinate that on so many fronts? Because you have a variety of different campuses, you have your relationship with your students and staff, as well as Ministry of Education and other government departments. What's the process that you use to be able to clearly communicate with all of those stakeholders?
Well, I guess there the bad news is the good news. The bad news, and it's not really bad news, it's the reality is that universities generally, and SFU in particular, are highly decentralized. Yes, we have 3 campuses that operate somewhat differently from each other. We have faculties that have a high degree of autonomy. We have faculty members who have a high degree of autonomy. So that is challenging. Having said that, it's a challenge that we're used to dealing with in our day-to-day work. And therefore, I think we have adapted rather well. And thankfully, people throughout the university have really stepped up to make sure that they are part of a collective decision-making process. We're also blessed by having a very strong communications team. And they've leapt into action. They're supporting everything we do in both our internal and external communications. We've set up a website that is updated regularly with FAQs and information. We've used social media channels as well as email, as well as our own website to try to reach the targeted groups we need to reach, and in some cases to reach a very broad population. It's been a challenge, but I'll say I have never been prouder to be president of this institution. I've been pretty proud for the past 10 years, but just to see how people have been prepared to look at things differently in order to make sure that we are responding in the most effective way has made life so much easier, not without its challenges, and not a lot of steep learning curves for all of us, including me, but curves that I think we're doing a pretty good job of getting up because of that collective effort and because we do have a really strong communications capacity that we've built up over the years.
Now, I have been receiving emails from people who are not sending out like blanket emails, but specific to me around particular communication well after what would be considered normal business hours. Are you noticing that people throughout the university are saying, okay, the rules have changed a little bit around where the boundaries of a workday are, and the most important thing that we do is that we get what is essential done?
Yeah, the notion of a weekend seems to have been lost in all of this, and even a workday. And in fact, the fact that people are working from home, I think, has meant that they're having to find different ways to adapt to work hours. Some of the people working from home are looking after kids who are no longer going to be in school. So we have had to adapt. So our work hours are more flexible. But I think you're right that people are adapting themselves and taking advantage of that flexibility to step up in ways that might not have been possible or necessary previously. So yeah, I see emails coming in and going out at all hours of the day on the weekends. People have never said to me, I'm sorry, this is outside my regular work hours. And I'm talking here about, of course, senior administration and faculty members. We hope with our regular staff as much as possible to try to maintain regularity, but even there's a whole bunch of adaptability going on. On the other hand, we have sent a message out to our staff that we are trying to maintain operations, and we will continue to find useful employment for all of our staff, even those whose jobs may no longer be relevant in the current environment. We'll try to repurpose them and put them to work elsewhere. God knows there's a lot of needs, so there's lots of opportunity to do that.
Well, I can tell you, not just senior staff, but people who are getting the work done are staying in contact with me. At least that's been my personal experience from the university, and I'm thankful for it because it says that there's a commitment to making sure that the operation is maintained and can see its way through. That said, have you had to lay anybody off?
No, our philosophy is not to lay anybody off. Our philosophy, and thankfully the province has been really supportive of this. They're encouraging us to the greatest extent possible to continue operations, to continue employment, to continue our commitment in terms of the wages that we provide to employees in terms of hours of work. And there's plenty of work to be done. It isn't necessarily in the same, well, certainly not in the same places. It may not even be in the same areas, but it's a matter of finding those opportunities for people and making sure that they are put to work in ways that are supportive and useful. In some cases, there may be opportunities, and we're looking at this for people to do some of the things that we've wanted them to do, but they haven't had time to do for a long time, to prepare for when we get back to more regular operations, so we can actually have some of the strategic planning and operational planning done that we've been trying to get done but haven't had time in the past. In other cases, it's a matter of shifting people to meet the immediate needs that in some areas are growing as a result of the situation.
You clearly are going to have some people who are considered essential that need to be on site at the different campuses. How do you make the decision around who needs to be there? And then what are the things that you need to do to ensure that they are safe and that physical distancing is respected?
Yeah, that's really important. And it's a balance of making sure we live up to the social distancing or physical distancing with safety, because we also don't want to leave employees isolated on campus in a way that might make them vulnerable. So we've got to make sure that there are adequate security protocols and that there are people to help if people get into difficulty at the same time as we maintain social distance. We have put a lot of that authority in the hands of supervisors to make those judgments. We want to be very sensitive to the needs of our employees. Some, as I say, will have childcare needs at home now that didn't exist before. Others may be have underlying conditions or be in vulnerable age groups. For others, it's more possible to come on when essential to perform functions on campus. But if they do, we want to make sure absolutely that they are kept at a distance from others in a way that protects them, while at the same time making sure there are others they can call upon and others who are there looking after security concerns so they're not vulnerable by virtue of that isolation. It's been challenging, but again, I'm just so impressed with what our staff are doing, both the supervisors and employees, as they're working through this. It's not perfect. I'm sure there are people who are frustrated, inevitably, that the decisions aren't being made as quickly or as effectively as they would like. But boy, are they being made in a way that is impressive in light of the conditions and challenges that are being faced.
So flexibility and innovative thinking appear to be two vital components in ensuring that we can all navigate our way through these challenges. Have there been a couple of suggestions that have come your way that you went, wow, that's a good idea? And if so, could you share it?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one that we're thinking of collectively, and it sort of came out organically. One of the real concerns I have, obviously, is for students generally. But there are students who are counting on work this summer, be they co-op students or interns, or be they just students who are looking for summer jobs. And in many cases, that work has not materialized. So what we're hoping is that some of those students will be able to continue their studies because we're committed to continuing our summer program, and then they can do their work term or their work later. But that may not be an option for others. So what I'm hoping we can do, and what I'm asking government to consider supporting us to do, is to help those students to find ways in which they can receive some compensation for actually contributing to agencies, including the university, to address the COVID-19 crisis. There are agencies that I'm sure are overwhelmed with demands, provided we don't put those students at risk, provided they're working in a remote location or at a distance. They may be able to provide useful service that is different from the co-op term or the kind of work they were contemplating, but can actually contribute to the resolution of this. Even reaching out and networking with people who might be isolated and alone, connecting with seniors or people who are vulnerable in their homes could be a useful thing. We could set up phone banks, we could set up video conferencing facilities, and we're going to look for some internal funding to try to support that, but it'd be great if governments could help to create a program for youth in that situation so we can help them to keep their own income needs met, but at the same time repurpose what might have been a work opportunity that's lost into a work opportunity that can really benefit society to help us all get through the COVID-19 situation. If that can happen, it'll be a win-win. Win for the students, a win for the community, and a win for the university as well.
Well, you talk about some of those agencies. I'm wondering, by extension, are you also able to offer some of that support to local businesses in the communities that you're located in? Because the university is such a vital center of talent, energy, exchange, economy. Is there a way in which that you can extend some of that support to especially smaller and mid-sized businesses?
Well, we can certainly try. And in some cases, I know some of our researchers are. I know one company that is trying to create a platform to support parents who are now having to educate their kids at home. And they've reached out to some of our researchers to see if they could help provide the content and provide some technological support in that effort. Also, our 3 campuses are all very much involved in supporting community in a variety of different ways. And thankfully, through the Van City Office of Community Engagement or the TD Surrey Community Engagement Center, through the relationships we have with our providers, we will do our best to try to be supportive wherever we can. And absolutely, I think if we could help to repurpose some of these students, some of them could also assist to keep small businesses and others alive. We also have small businesses up here on the mountain that are lessees of the University Community Trust. And I know the Community Trust is going to do everything it can to try to help those businesses, many of which are struggling and threatened, to try to help them in every way we can to get through this period and come out the other side.
I think the operative thought there from you is that we have to work together and find ways in which we can support one another, because coming out the other end is going to be as important as how we deal with the situation that we're in right now.
Yeah, and I must say, the more we can continue businesses, the more we can continue educational institutions doing what they do, the less difficulty we'll have coming out the other end. If businesses shut down, it'll be very hard to get new businesses to start up. And that's a real worry. I really worry about the small business sector being devastated, being hollowed out, restaurants and the like. You know, my personal life, I'm trying to support restaurants that are no longer providing customer service on site by thinking about how I can order food that I might not normally order to keep them afloat. And I think we all have to do that in our personal lives as institutions and as the like. How can we leverage the capacity we have? You're right. It's all about doing it together. I mean, there are some positives in the clouds that we face. One is I sense a tremendous sense of community that's emerging, not only within the university, but more broadly amongst people, a sense of interconnectivity. Maybe it's ironic given that we're physically more disconnected, but I think it's showing the importance of staying connected in all the other ways that are important to building community and gaining strength. And the more that we as an engaged university can be an instrument for that, the happier I'll be.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Andrew Petter, thank you for taking the time to share where you're at the university, and please stay safe. All the best to you and your family, and of course, to the entire network of people who call SFU their home. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Stu. And I have to point out that you are part of the solution, because here you are as part of Conversations That Matter, stepping up, providing information to people and helping to share knowledge around how businesses and institutions like ours are struggling. You're part of the SFU family. You're demonstrating what we are trying to do in what you're doing today. So thank you.
Thank you. You know, it's the accumulated aggregation of our collective efforts that I think will make a difference. And so we can all make our contribution, and collectively, I'm convinced we'll come out of this. Maybe it will be a bit of a struggle, but we'll do it together. Thank you, Andrew.
Couldn't have put it better myself.